Welcome back. It's Miss Mimi Antal. Welcome to ELA Tuesdays. And today we're working with students in grades 3 through 6. We're going to work on reading today in ELA. You know what? One of the things that I most enjoy, just in general, is reading. I love reading a good book. And unfortunately, sometimes I don't really have that much time just to enjoy reading. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to take some time to just read. And I'm also going to suggest that you try something to kind of increase that enjoyment that you have for reading. So, once again, this is ELA Tuesdays. Welcome as we prepare for another episode. Before we get started though, this is what you're going to need. I added some things up here on the board so that you can see today. So once again, welcome. Today we're going to work on text-to-text connections. And like I started to say initially, that's going to enable us to really enjoy what we're reading more so. It's also going to increase our comprehension, our understanding. So as you can see here, I've added a learning target. Let's see, I've got a pointer here. I'm going to try to use it and see if it helps. So the learning target today is, I can make personal connections with the text I read in order to increase comprehension and my reading enjoyment. Okay, so you remember that word comprehension. So that's what we're going to be working on today. The only things that you'll need for today's lesson would include a notebook or maybe a piece of paper so you can take some notes and jot some things down, which also means that you'll probably will need a pencil. And in addition to that, I'm going to ask that you pick a good book, a fiction book, fiction read, so you can practice some of the things that we're going to work on today, later. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, do you want to count me back in?
Yes.
Oh, I wish I had that there. Okay, go ahead.
So what do you do?
Just count me in again so I can start again, like officially.
All right.
You don't have to stop it.
I just gotta do this.
Okay.
And 3, 2.
Welcome back. So like I was saying earlier, today we're going to work on making connections with the text that we read. We're going to make connections between what we read or the text and ourselves. There's multiple types of text and connections, but today we're going to make text-to-self connections. Personal connections are made when we're reading a text and when we see something in the book that reminds you of something that's happened to you. Has that ever happened to you? Have you already made these sorts of connections between text and self? Because something in the text just reminded you of something that has already happened. Another type of text-to-self connection would be when you notice a character in the book seems similar to maybe yourself or someone else you know. That's another type of text-to-self. Here's another one. What about when you find an idea in the text or in a book that's similar to your own ideas or maybe even your own opinions? Yep, once again, you would be making a personal connection, a text-to-self connection. Lastly, something you read makes you think about life or the world in a new way. So once again, listener, if you remember, I was telling you about just how much I enjoy reading. And one of the things that I enjoy most about reading and how it makes me feel is that no matter what I read, when I'm done, I'm somehow changed by my involvement with the text. It's always for better. Sometimes it helps me solidify my own thinking, expand or stretch the way I think, or sometimes it challenges me and challenges my thinking, but it always leaves us a little bit different, and that's because we're making those connections. Okay, so I'm going to give you some ideas about how you can try to use this as you're reading. One of the things that you can do is you can ask yourself some general questions about the text and those connections with yourself. Here are an example of a few. You could ask, in what ways are the events in the book like or unlike my own life? Today we're going to read a little bit from the Watsons Go to Birmingham again. And in today's part of chapter 1, it is absolutely hilarious. I can't wait to share it with you. But there's an event in this book that I definitely have a connection with. I'm sure I'm never going to forget this part. Sometimes it increases our comprehension, our understanding, but sometimes making those connections also increases our ability to remember what we read too. question you can ask yourself might be, what about the characters, events, or setting is interesting to me? When you think about how I am involved in this, you're once again making those connections. Here's another thing to think about. What surprised me, excited me about the book? And lastly, are the author's opinions like or unlike my own? Okay, so I'm going to start. Today, as I do the think aloud and I read the text aloud, I'm going to actually think out loud or share with you what I'm thinking in my mind as I make connections to self. And then as we go along, I'll give you an opportunity to try it too. That's what the paper and pencil is for, so that you can jot down some of your connections. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so welcome back. Let's go ahead and try to make some connections with the text. And like I said, I'm going to try it first, and I'll do it through the think aloud. So if you remember, before when we were reading The Watsons Go to Birmingham, we last left off where the main character, 10-year-old Kenny, is out with his brother de-icing the car. And in de-icing the car, actually Kenny makes a connection here. He has a flashback of experiences that happened to him previously with his brother and another friend. We're going to continue right where we left off. So, as me and Bai scraped the ice off the brown bomber, I wasn't going to get folded, or rather fooled again. I kept on chopping ice off the back window and ignored Bai's mumbling voice. Okay, so listener, do you remember where we left off now? They're outside scraping the ice off the car. And don't forget, as we continue to read through this, we're going to make some connections, some text-to-self connections. The next time I took a little rest, Byron was still calling my name, but sounded like he had something in his mouth. He was saying, "Kitty, kitty, help, help." When he started banging on the door of the car, I went to take a peek at what was going on. Bai was leaned over the outside of the mirror, looking at something in it real close. Big puffs of steam were coming out of the side of the mirror. Stop. This reminds me of something else. This reminds me of when you see cars that take off in the winter and big puffs or plumes of smoke come out from the back of the pipes on the vehicles. It reminds me of a cold winter day. Back to the story. I picked up a big hard chunk of ice to get ready for Byron's trick. Help me! Go get Mama! Go get Mama! Oh! Ah! I'm not playing, Byron. I'm not that stupid. You'd better start doing your side of the car or I'll tear you up with this ice bowl. He banged his hand against the car harder and started stomping his feet. Oh, please, Kia, help me. Oh, go get Mama. I raised the ice chunk over my head. I'm not playing, Bai. You better get busy or I'm telling Dad. I moved closer, and when I got right next to him, I could see boogers running out of his nose and tears running down his cheeks. These weren't tears from the cold either. These are big, juicy, crybaby tears. I dropped my ice chunk. Bai, what's wrong? Help me, Kia, go. I moved closer. I couldn't believe my eyes. Byron's mouth was frozen on the mirror. He was stuck as a fly on a fly strip. Stop. I want you to try it now, listener. Are you making any connections to the text? Is there anything here in the text that reminds you of something that's happened in the past, or perhaps a character that is similar to either yourself or someone else that you know? Okay, I'm going to continue to read, but now it's your turn to try. So as I continue to read the story, grab that piece of paper and your pencil and jot down any connections you may have. Now what I'll do is I'll pause a little bit after reading to give you a chance to actually write that down. Okay, let's continue as we try to make those connections. I could have done a lot of stuff to him. If it had been me with my lips stuck on something like this, he'd have tortured me for a couple of days before he got help. Not me, though. I nearly broke my neck trying to get into the house to rescue Byron. As soon as I ran through the front door, Mama, Dad, and Joey all yelled, "Close that door!" Stop. Okay, listener, why do you think they were asking him to close the door? Yep, exactly. You remember how cold it is in the story? Let's continue on. "Mama, quick, it's By. He's froze up outside." No one seemed too impressed. I screamed, "Really? He's froze to the car! Help! He's crying!" That shook them up. He could cut Byron's head off and he probably wouldn't cry. "Kenneth Bernard Watson, what on earth are you talking about?" "Mama, please hurry up." Mama, Dad, and Joey threw on some extra coats and followed me to the brown bomber. Stop. Okay, take a few moments to jot down any connections that you may have had with the text. I'll go ahead and wait. Okay, let's come back together. As we finish up here, listeners, this would be a good opportunity too to share some of these connections that you have with the text with someone at home or someone near you. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. The fly was still stuck buzzing. "Oh, Mama, help me, get it. Oh my Lord," Mama screamed. And I thought, ooh, let me grab this paper. And I thought she was going to do one of those movie style faints. Oh, she even put her hand over her forehead and staggered back just a little bit. Joey, of course, started crying right along with Byron. Dad was doing his best not to explode laughing. Big puffs of smoke were coming out of his nose and mouth as he tried to squeeze his laughs down. Finally, he put his head on his arms and leaned against the car's hood and howled. "Byron," Mama said, gently wiping tears off his cheeks with the end of her scarf. "It's okay, sweetheart. How'd this happen?" Stop. Okay, I'm gonna make another connection. I'll think aloud here. I remember as a child, my mom would always wipe tears just to make me feel like it was gonna be okay. It got a little embarrassing as I got older, but I think that's definitely a connection that's gonna help me comprehend and remember what I'm reading a little bit more. Asking how it happened. Can't you tell, Walona? This little knucklehead was kissing his reflection in the mirror and got his lips stuck. Dad took a real deep breath. "Is your tongue stuck too?" "No." "Quit teasing. Help." Well, at least the boy hadn't gotten too passionate with himself. Dad thought that was hilarious and put his head back on his arms. Mama didn't see anything funny. "Daniel Watson, what are we gonna do? What do y'all do when this happens up here?" Mama started talking Southern style when she got worried. Instead of saying here, she said here. And instead of saying you all, she said y'all. Dad stopped laughing long enough to stay, or rather long enough to say, "Walona, I lived in Flint all my life, 35 years, and I swear this is the first time I've ever seen anyone with their lips frozen to a mirror. Honey, I don't know what to do. Wait till he thaws, I suppose?" "Pull him off, Dad," I suggested. Byron went nuts. He started banging his hands on the brown bomber's doors again and mumbling, No, Mama, don't let him." Joey blubbered out, "This is just like that horrible story Kitty read me about the guy, Narcy, who stared at himself so long he forgot to eat and starved to death. Mama, please save him." She went over and hugged her arms around stupid Byron's waist. Mama asked Dad, "What about hot water? Could we pour enough hot water on the mirror so it would warm up and he could get off?" She kept wiping tears off of By's cheeks and said, "Don't you worry, baby. We're going to get you off of this." But her voice was so shaky and southern that I wondered if we'd be driving around in the summer with a skeleton dangling around the outside mirrors by its lips. Dad said, I don't know. Pouring water to him might be the worst thing to do, but it might be our only chance. Okay, listeners, I think that's probably a good stopping point for today. I'm definitely interested in listening to more, and I promise I'll be back with more. But let's stop and kind of recap some of the things that we learned and we talked about today. So today we were talking about making personal connections, text-to-self connections. What I'd like for you to do, as we review, I want you to remember the reasons why we make these connections. Some of the reasons why we make these connections is because it helps us comprehend and remember what we're reading, but it also helps us to enjoy what we're reading. Now, later on today, or sometime throughout the week, as you're reading your book, remember it's to be fiction, it's to be a fictional story. But as you read your text or your book, I want you to jot down connections that you're making with regards to text-to-self as well. So today you learn that readers relate to characters, stories, and ideas, and we make these text-to-self connections. And this week, don't forget to jot down those personal connections. Okay, well that's all we have for you today on ELA Tuesdays. We'll see you next time.